Hello, everyone. My name is Pianpian. I'm the founder and CEO of Amotions. Amotions is a platform to help you increase success and happiness by developing important skills such as emotional intelligence, interpersonal skills, and leadership skills. Today, we're very happy to have executive coach and leadership coach, Sydney, with us. Sydney, we're really happy to have you here. We're glad to hear your approach and wisdoms as a coach for more than a decade, and also someone who has extensive experience working in management and leadership roles in Fortune 100 companies.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Sydney, some of the challenges we hear from Emotions community members and users, for example, they have hard time receiving and giving feedback. I wonder if you have encountered such challenges in your coaching practices, and how would you suggest someone to do in this kind of case?
Wow. Yes, I often run into this in coaching leaders. They want to be more effective at both giving and receiving feedback. And so I think I'll approach my response thinking about a leader, a young man leader that I'm coaching who we've been working on this together lately. And so giving and receiving feedback is really tricky because we human beings, the word feedback can trigger us in our, the amygdala in the base of the brain, our survival. We feel threatened, even the word, even before we know if it's positive or negative. And so when I'm triggered and my defenses are up, it's really hard for me to hear and so the foundational work that I do with clients when we begin coaching helps them kind of manage their nervous system, understand and catch themselves when they're triggered or emotionally hijacked. That's when we're in a habitual pattern of reactivity that somehow our personality thinks will keep us safe in the world. We all experience this. It's easy to tell when you're thinking back on something that happened yesterday or this morning, and you think to yourself, oh my gosh, why didn't I say this? Or why didn't I say that? Or I was like a deer in headlights, or I came on too strong in my defensiveness. That's a good sign that you were probably triggered. So kind of a baseline skill that I work with my clients to develop. And right now I'm doing that by having them do a 6-week program with positive intelligence, where they learn they become more familiar with their defense reactions and are able to then have practices to shift back to themselves or their center, where they have access to their sources of intelligence and wisdom and compassion and inspiration and empathy. All that is in a different part of the brain. So that's part of leadership development in the work that I do. So that aside, let's talk more about giving and receiving feedback. There are some useful sort of a list of useful guidelines, I think, that help leaders be more effective. So Pianpian, if I had feedback for you, especially if I thought it would be hard for you to hear it, like it's constructive or negative, I need to make sure my nervous system is settled and I'm in my center, right? And it's good if I ask permission to give you the feedback. That is this a good time? And if not, to schedule a time, and so that you can be prepared. And then if you give me permission, yes, please give me the feedback, you're already more open to hearing it than if I just sort of, do a drive-by and give you feedback when you're not expecting it, right? Your whole system is going to react and it'll be hard for you to hear. So simply asking permission and making sure that you have a good time to give feedback is really helpful. Then it's like when if I say, well, Pianpian, why did you do it that way? That word why is likely to trigger you and send you into your defense reaction. And it's much more useful to use words like what or how than to use why. Why is seldom useful in giving and receiving feedback.
Mhm.
So I center myself, I find a good time, I ask permission, and then I take responsibility for my own thoughts and my own emotions and what I want. And what I mean by that is I use I statements to take responsibility. I don't put it on you. So I describe what happened objectively. So, well, Pianpian, yesterday in the meeting when I was giving my presentation, you interrupted me like 3 times, and I wondered what was going on with you, and I felt confused, and it disrupted my flow, and I found myself wondering if you were trying to make me look bad.
Mhm.
You see, I used I statements. Here's what happened objectively. I describe it like anyone would describe it if they were seeing a videotape of what happened. Objective description of what it was. And then I take responsibility for what my own experience. And then I can say, and so I'm wondering what was going on with you. This is the impact I think it had. And this is what I'd really like to have you do differently in the future, right? That is easier for people to hear than if I say, well, you were trying to make me look bad in that meeting, and you see, immediately the other person's going to be defensive, as opposed to saying, you interrupted me 3 times. This is the impact it had on me. This is the impact I think it had on the team. Giving the other person a chance to share what was going on for them, and then moving into some sort of solution.
Yeah.
So that's the model that I often use, and we practice too, which is helpful. Is
Yeah.
that kind of what you were looking for?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you mentioned kind of a few things that to summarize, it's present a fact and then how you're feeling with that
Mhm.
fact or action of the other person, and then ask questions to understand why someone
Mhm.
act like that instead of
Mhm.
assuming their intention.
Yes.
Right.
Because I think we talked about this recently, where my intention is private and the impact on you is private. My action is public. So whenever the intention and the impact are different, then
Mhm.
there's a gap. And the only way to close that gap is to share
Right.
and to listen. And so that becomes useful.